All right, so that brings us, at least from an agenda standpoint, halfway through the event. I hope you're enjoying it. I think it's been pretty insightful. Andy, from an innovation standpoint, what were some of the takeaways that you got from the first half of the event here?
There's a lot of stuff to talk about, but like I said, opportunities was one of the things I talked about at the beginning. And so one of the things that really stuck out to me is scale. From the standpoint, I'm a data center guy, all right? So I live in this high availability world, and so if I have to do high availability at the edge, it gets really, really costly, really, really fast. And looking at the offering from scale, now I have the capability to build out a highly available solution for an edge location at probably less than what I could put a single highly available server in place for. And if I did that single server, it's going to be way overpowered for what I need. So it gives us some real opportunities to bring some really innovative solutions out to the market. The other one that really stuck out to me is not a technology innovation. It's a go-to-market innovation, and that's got to be APC with UPS as a service. That's it, we hear so much about as a service for so many other things. Hardware vendors have some programs. I know Ingram does a lot of stuff internal offerings. But to hear about that as a UPS, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Why didn't somebody think of that before? So now I can put this complete solution and really present it as a month to month or a pay as you go model. And I think that's just great. All right, well, let's keep things rolling. We got a lot of more to cover. Our next topics coming up here are the Touchless Data Center. And we're going to talk about securing your data, so protecting your data in the data center. And it looks like Mike's getting ready for our intro for Touchless Data Center. So, we pre-recorded a demo that we're going to show after we talk about it a little bit here. So what's kind of interesting goggles you got on there?
Yes, this is if you're not familiar, right, I know Andy is, but this is a Microsoft HoloLens 2. It's a comfortable headset that someone could wear for quite some time. And it's something that allows you to be heads up and hands free and do various things. The demo that we'll be doing, or the video that we recorded, is just showing remote assist, which is part of the Microsoft Dynamics 365 platform. So we're going to show that sort of in action. Now that is something that we've been using here, right? So during the pandemic, really we were allowed one technician in the data center at a time. So, we have 6 of us that are trying to set up demos and, turn things off or turn things on. And we use the remote assist technology to get that job done. So that was something we've actually used here. Now, Andy, there's some other use cases that you can think of regarding the HoloLens, and really overall the concept of mixed reality, which is what this enables in the data center.
That is really, let's start talking about possibilities. Okay, when we have this tool that has this interactiveness, okay, whether it's overlaying information. So, I think about it, I would love to be able to look at my racks and, see how much power is being drawn just by looking at them. Or if I've got an overloaded circuit or something like that, without having to go in and check a couple of different consoles. We were talking and things like, we're going to show you a demo of how you can use this in this kind of environment, but being able to identify being guided to the right rack, being guided within the rack to the right piece of equipment, all the way down to just think about the capabilities of this. So, whether it's just by position in the rack or reading a barcode or whatever you might need, all of this stuff is now possible.
So, with no further ado, check out the HoloLens 2 and Remote Assist. All right. Oh, hey, Andy. What's up?
Hey, Mike. Can you do me a favor?
Absolutely.
I've got a server in the data center that I'm having a drive problem with. I'm hoping I won't have to replace the drive. Want to give it a try. If you can pull it and put it back in, sometimes that fixes problems.
Yeah, sure, of course. Let me have you come with me here, and let's take a walk into the data center. Okay, oh, there you are. All right, so where are we going exactly?
So it's going to be the along the right here. So these racks.
Okay.
And most of the way down the row. So it's going to be the second to last rack.
All right. So we could open it up here. So the rack here, right, with the Blanco and the Veritas net backup inside?
Yep. And actually what we're going to be looking at is just below that, a couple of HPE servers there just above that switch. So let me see if I can mark it here for you. This guy right here.
Ah, perfect.
Actually,
right.
that server and that drive.
That's the exact drive, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to pull that out of there and put it back in. All right, so
Let me clear my marks there and see how we do. All right, it looks like it is lighting up.
There we go. I signed it.
You and your smiley faces.
All right,
so
I'll
have to check the interface a little bit later once that drive is back up. Yeah, if you don't mind closing the door on the rack there.
Yeah, I'm always forgetting to do that. All right. Thank you. And here, let me see if I can. Let's see. Nope,
Maybe you should put something else in that rack. That one's pretty empty.
Sure. We got fire here. Oh, there it is. Got a fire in the data center. Oh, and look, I got a cloud in the data center. So this is how I do hybrid cloud, just holographically. And then you know, this is what I like to do when you guys let me in the data center: set fires and leave. All right. See you later, Andy.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome. We're here with Mark Cram, Director of New Market Development, Data and Power Control Division of Legrand. Now, you may not have all heard of Legrand, but definitely you'll heard of Raritan. You may have heard of Server Technology, but that's not all of the brands that are under the Legrand label at this point. Welcome, Mark. Why don't you give us a little bit of background on yourself and on Legrand?
Well, thanks, Andrew, for the welcome. I am the Director of New Market Development, as you pointed out. I've been with Server Technology over the course of the past 12 years. And prior to that, I've been in the PC industry, the semiconductor industry, and the automotive industry. So I've had a broad exposure to a lot of the electronics users and applications around the globe.
Thanks, Mark. So one of our themes, obviously, there are a lot of topics that we want to talk about today, but one of the things that we want to talk about is really some of the innovations driving changes in the data center. Now, usually when we think of that, we think of the servers, storage, networking, but those all need infrastructure. So what's really happening in infrastructure driving change, especially when we look into small and medium enterprise?
So what we're seeing, there's a lot of infrastructure changes going on. There's a lot of effort to implement remote monitoring and management capabilities. There's some adaptations that have come to drive flexibility in the infrastructure. For example, we introduced our combined C13, C19 outlet. We were first on the market with that. We've done some things to enable semi-custom power infrastructure. So for example, we were the first to have a modular PDU where you could go online and build your own PDU.
Oh, excellent. So yeah, that's one of the things that I think everything that's happened. I think we've all learned that we have to be ready to be lights out data centers at this point. We're also seeing a lot of change. We hear a lot about cloud, but the piece that everybody forgets about cloud is that it also drives edge, because cloud isn't perfect for everything. So I'm now seeing a lot of growth in uh, data center equipment going into edge locations, whether that's actual manufacturing facilities, whether that's back of house resources, whether it's retail or restaurants. Obviously, we hear a lot about technology being deployed elsewhere as well, and things like 5G and those kind of things. What kind of impacts are you seeing for new products, new demands from Legrand customers?
So in that example, we are seeing a lot of different things from the cabinet space. We are taking different form factors that mount on the wall or on the pole. We are also doing different things in form factors for power. So we're seeing in those applications a lot of horizontal power strips being applied that are remote managed and integrated into the cabinet as part of the effort. Then we're also seeing smaller patch panels integrated into some of those cabinets. And we're seeing those cabinets, as you pointed out, going into places like retail edge locations where they're trying to implement some form of AR, VR that is context and time sensitive, where they might be trying to do virtually try on clothes, for example, in a changing room like at a Levi's store or something to that effect. We're also seeing that on other retail floor environments. We're also seeing that the edge locations are very much interested in integrating sensor support. And to that end, we've launched our Smart Rack controller, which is really a very nice sensor platform. It enables the attachment of a whole bunch of sensors, and they are all able to be daisy chained off of standard patch cables. Makes it very easy to install, deploy, and pull data from them. It's a great tool.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm used to that kind of functionality from managed PDUs that will support sensors and those sort of things as well. But obviously, when we're talking those smaller use cases, small racks, I don't have many outlets left if I go and put all that control piece on. So you've presented that or have an opportunity, have that as a separate unit. So that's kind of a neat innovation. A lot of we've always talked about the cost of putting a truck on the road and how the remote control, remote monitoring, remote management, how critical that is. What are some of the capabilities now that when we look across all the Legrand offerings that I really have? So at what point, what kind of a failure do I have to put somebody on the road at this point?
So where we've been able to avoid truck rolls is in the event of being able to actually remotely reset devices. The other way that we've been able to avoid a truck roll is to work with the environmental control systems by monitoring what's going on with the temperature, the humidity, or being able to have remote door lock access tied into the power and so forth. We can tell it to shut down in the event that an unauthorized access has taken place. We can tie in a camera. We can turn on certain lights based on what's going on within the space. And so we have tried to be very proactive in enabling the remote management and the remote reset function, whether that's for the switches, whether that's for the storage, whether that's for compute, but we can do it all within that context. So it's a very nice feature set to be able to offer customers.
Yeah, you brought up a great point there around physical security. Whether we're just looking at it from the standpoint of reduce the likelihood of somebody inadvertently pulling something, to even from a compliance standpoint, where I may have requirements that may have to show physical security around certain systems. That also helps. One of the things that I've talked about is, obviously we've got lots of racks here. If I've got somebody in to do physical work and I can unlock just the rack that they're supposed to work on, I know they're not getting into anything else.
Exactly. Or even in some cases, being able to unlock the portion of the rack that they are authorized to get access to. We can even enable you to remotely enable the power, say, okay, if you're not in within 30 minutes, we're turning the power back off at that outlet. So you need to get in, get your work done, and get out of our space. And the form factor of that workspace may have changed. We're seeing edge data centers that might be 6 racks in a small telecom shelter. We're seeing, in some cases, it's a single rack inside of a closet in the basement of the building. There's a lot of different environments now where these are going. And, it started many years ago as client server. It's now called edge, but it's the same basic concept. There is a need for local compute and local control and remote access control for those that want to be in charge of their assets.
All right. Thanks again for your time, Mark. And I'm sure we'll have some people who will be reaching out to you.
I am here with Dave Nentars, the great Dave Nentars from Cisco Systems. He's a system architect there. Dave, welcome.
Hello, Mike. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a busy day.
Awesome.
But what I want to know here, I have a few questions for data center. You've heard of this, correct? That's why we have you on. What do you think are some of the more commonly missed opportunities that partners, are, let's say, missing out on within the data center sale?
I think for the health of a partner, if a partner wants to grow their business, first of all, the management and the development of these new applications is causing a big change as well. How infrastructure is managed and how those applications are managed. So one of the things we're doing at Cisco is we're trying to remove as much management on premise that a customer needs to manage. We're putting that all up into our cloud with Cisco Intersight. So that relieves the end customer of lots of costs, but for the partner, there's an opportunity here on managed services and using that cloud application for cloud operations, Cisco Intersight, to be profitable with the services that the partner delivers to the end customer. Leverage that tool because it has hooks into private and public cloud infrastructures. It can pretty much see everything. Multiple clouds, private clouds, both physical and virtual. All right, so that's an opportunity that I think that more partners can explore to be profitable. Secondly, that Intersight capability is a subscription. So any type of revenue flow that you can bring into the partner where it's predictable and foreseeable is a benefit for the CFO at the partner. You don't have to go out there and knife fight these hardware deals all the time, right? You know what's coming in on a month by month or a year by year basis. So that's important. And then the last thing I would say is really around building automation practices. Automation is really the key to everything in the data center for efficiency and agility. And either if you're experienced in automation as a partner or you're just getting started, I would want to put in a plug for the DevNet Create conference on October 19th and October 20th. It's going to be a wonderful conference for the beginner and the experienced partner with automation in mind. And, there's no shortage of training material on the internet to give a partner a good automation practice. The key is how do you get started and what's the best way to maximize your time in building that practice. And I think that DevNet Create is going to really help in that manner.
All right, thanks, Dave. Just from a couple of things you said. So DevNet, right? So that's a great resource, certainly for anybody. Maybe you've traditionally sold into data center, right? That changing landscape. DevNet helps prepare you for that changing landscape. And then earlier, the piece, really you were talking about Intersight. So Intersight, just to be clear, that's sort of a cloud-based management application for your data center that Cisco offers.
Mhm.
So assuming that's correct, I don't know if you want to say anything more specifically about Intersight, but do you have any sort of customer use cases, examples where they've benefited from using Intersight or solved any specific issues?
Yeah, so the range of benefits for partners and end customers is a pretty wide scale, and we have a lot of success stories that we can share. But some of the basic ones, just if a customer's not using Intersight today, they can get started with a free version to get used to it, right? It does inventory monitoring and things like that. But then as we go up the scale as far as capabilities, we can introduce cloud-based management, and we're in our current products, we're removing hardware requirements because we know our management is going to be in the cloud. So we're eliminating hardware that needs to be powered, cooled, patched, upgraded, etc., from the on-premise data center. And it's all in the cloud now. So that's another big impact. And then from an application standpoint, whether that application is private, public, or hybrid, we have some capabilities through Intersight Workload Optimizer to make sure that that application is performing at its best possible, measure at the lowest possible cost. So, that's a pretty big statement, and you're like, wow, how does that magic do that? The AI that is behind Intersight is amazing, and so customers can get started with the base version, turn on a trial for 90 days, and then start using these advanced features. Also, when we move up the stack from just typical hyper-converged rack or blade management at the base, at that essentials layer, as we get into the advantage and premier tiers, we can start doing a lot of things with storage, third-party storage, and workflow automation. It's kind of like the kitchen sink at that premier level.
All right. Okay, Dave, thanks for answering my questions, and thanks for all the information. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity.
We're here with Ryan Fries, technical consultant for Citrix with Ingram Micro. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, thanks for having me, Andrew.
So today in our event, we've talked a lot about a lot of the stuff in the data center, but that's not the only piece. What are some of the operational challenges that are facing organizations these days?
Yeah, it's a great question, Andrew. We're seeing honestly time and time again that our partners, as well as their end users, right, are facing challenges with those day-to-day IT operations, right? And I think this is partially a good thing, just because it really shows a testament to the importance of IT in overall today's business, right? And what we've been seeing is a particular focus around simplifying IT operations through what I like to call kind of these big four trends, right? We're seeing a lot of movement with the cloud, a lot of movement with analytics, mobile, as well as social. These are all kind of those game-changing technologies that are really changing the way businesses operate today.
Now, this is something that we might not traditionally think about with Citrix, but I know that they've made a recent acquisition, and that's what you're going to talk about today. So, what can you tell us about some of the new tools that Citrix is offering?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we're seeing with these IT operation challenges is these new technologies, these big four I just mentioned earlier, they're really continuing to complicate really how day-to-day IT works, which is why project management and resource management solutions are becoming more and more necessary for organizations than we've ever seen before. Not that they weren't pertinent before. I mean, we've always had project management solutions that were out there. But now with again, these advent of these new technologies, we're seeing an increase than we've ever seen before, which brings us to, as you alluded to, Citrix's newest acquisition, which is called Rike. So if you haven't heard of Wrike before, which is WRIKE, just so everyone has an idea of what that looks like. It's a new technology that, again, that Citrix acquired. And essentially what it does is it provides various departments, like IT as an example, but also we can throw sales into it, HR, really anything, digital marketing. And it provides these different departments and even an organization-wide movement, the capabilities to better optimize those day-to-day operations, as well as their ongoing projects, right? So essentially what it does is it provides a workspace, which if you've sold Citrix in the past, you're probably very familiar with the term of a workspace. It provides this workspace with a 360-degree view of these ongoing projects to really help enable cross-departmental collaboration, as well as keep track of progress to ensure that projects get delivered in a timely manner and within budget, right?
Well, it sounds like a great tool. I was interested in it from an IT project management space, but it sounds like it's got the opportunity to really benefit the entire organization. So thank you very much to telling us about Wrike, and thanks for your time, Ron.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, so I am here now showing you or letting you listen to the Jabra Evolve 285. So not necessarily the type of headset like the Blue Parrots. This is a more multifunctional one, but I have covering my ears, so in a case where I don't want to hear as much noise, you'll just have to trust me on this one. It's much louder in the data center when I open up the earbuds. So it's nice to just work with something over your ears when you're in here, or even if you want to listen to music to help the time go by. And then it's nice because I can just flip this up, so it's not in my way for anything, and flip it down if I need to, if I get a call or I need to communicate with somebody while I'm in here. Okay, so I hope you're enjoying the show, and I'll see you soon. All right, so I have with me today Charles Erday of Ingram Micro. Charles is the Senior Sales Manager for Ingram Micro's house brand V7. Thanks for being with us today, Charles.
Hi, Michael. Thank you for having me.
So why is V7 the house brand for Ingram Micro?
That's a great question. Ingram Micro is unique in the fact that it is the only global distributor that has its own private label, V7, that was actually designed to offer equal or better value for its products, because we use the exact same factories as Tier 1, that allows our resellers to make more margin and win opportunities.
Now, Charles, I know the answer to this. I have this whole setup behind me, which is totally V7 driven, from the displays to the sit stand, keyboard, mouse, some stuff on the shelves there, and even the stool I'm sitting on. But I'll ask you, what type of products does V7 offer?
Great. Yes, we actually manufacture all the accessory products that surround the core solutions. We manufacture desktop, server, and laptop accessory products, such as keyboards, monitors, mice, backpacks, docking stations, privacy filters, UPS, and more.
Now, our event today is focused on the data center. So can we narrow down that list of products specifically for data center focused solutions?
Absolutely. So V7 also manufactures server racks, rack accessories, server UPSs, even network cables.
All right, and the last thing that I want to ask you is, why should a reseller trust the V7 brand?
That's a great question, and it comes down to is that our resellers trust Ingram Micro, and that's why they do business with us. So Ingram Micro is going to put its quality and confidence in V7. We are going to perform and make sure that we provide a quality product for our customers. And if there's ever an issue, it comes down to is that our customers can just reach out to Ingram Micro Tech Support, and we'll get the problem resolved.
All right, Charles, thanks for being with us today. I hope you have a great day. Bye.
So as we continue our data center interviews, we want to mix things up a little bit. So we brought part of the data center outside with us, and I am here with Gus Ionello, a technical account manager for Veritas here at Ingram. Obviously, we know Veritas from a backup standpoint, and we understand that backup is an important part of ransomware defenses. But what else does Veritas have that helps us against ransomware?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Veritas looks at backup as your last line of defense against ransomware, right? And the only way that you can be defended from that is by having backups that cannot be compromised by ransomware. So to give you an example, with their latest version of NetBackup 9.1, what they've done is they've added some features that help really strengthen your posture against ransomware. And real quickly, some of those features include stronger encryption, immutable storage, and some detection capabilities. For example, their AI-powered anomaly detection system, which allows you to look for anomalous activity amongst your backup flow, right? Any suspicious behavior, it's going to alert your backup admins, allow them to remediate that, and it's going to grow and learn as you go on. So it's going to be able to eliminate false positives.
Well, that learning is important, because as we're finding out, the ransomware people are starting to target a lot of those backups directly. You mentioned that backup. A lot of people are familiar with Veritas with Backup Exec. Net backup, we tend to think of as kind of a big enterprise solution, but I got to imagine it's getting to be more important to a lot more customers, especially when we move into things like container-based solutions, modern applications, those kind of environments.
Oh, absolutely. Containerization and container adoption is really on the rise, and having a solution that can protect that is becoming more and more important. And NetBackup has been able to protect containers for some time now, but it's continually updating, its ability to protect not only Kubernetes but Kubernetes-based platforms, right? So they've extended those full capabilities to VMware Tanzu, Red Hat OpenShift, as well as Google GKE. And what's great about it is they're removing the complexity. They're making it easy to back up these environments by things like they have a built-in interface for Kubernetes backup right in their web UI. So you're quickly discovering your Kubernetes clusters, you're quickly applying protection policies, and you have flexible recovery options so that you can recover what makes sense for you in a recovery event.
Sounds great. Now, we've been talking about NetBackup. We've mentioned Backup Exec. I know there's a lot of other stuff on Veritas's line card. So I'm going to kind of open it up and say, what's out there that Veritas has that people may not know about, but you think is really interesting, exciting, that more of our partners should be looking at?
Absolutely. So one thing that I'm talking to partners a lot about is Veritas' Aptar solution. And simply put, Aptar is a analytics and reporting tool that takes a look at your infrastructure. It takes a look at your storage, your cloud, your virtualization, as well as your backup technologies, and gives you real actionable insights into how you can save on resource usage, what's underperforming, what are you overutilizing, where can you cut cost. You can do things like chargeback, etc. But most importantly, especially in the fight against ransomware, it's helping you identify your unprotected workloads, right? So finding those workloads that don't have a protection policy and maybe are reporting false positives, right? False successful jobs where there might have been just a partial success or even a failure. And I think to answer your question, what is the most exciting thing about that is that it can do this amongst a whole variety of vendors and solutions, not just Veritas solutions. And it's including backup vendors, right? Your Veeams, your Commvaults of the world. And that's really great for not only end users with diverse infrastructures that may have multiple tools, but our MSP partners, right, who are providing services to diverse infrastructures. This gives them a tool that helps their customers cut costs as well as add to their service line card.
Well, it sounds like a great opportunity for partners to really get a bigger involvement in their customers' infrastructure and have a better idea of what's going on.
Absolutely.
And, historically, I know that we always find some system or storage or something out there that's nobody knew about. Whether it was left over from something or something out, and with all the cybersecurity risks right now, those abandoned systems can really be a challenge. So great insight. Thank you very much for your time, Gus. And
Thank you for having me.
talking to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so we've seen the Microsoft HoloLens 2. Now I'm here to show you a cheaper alternative. So the B450 XT-MS. So it's a 450 headset, which was the first one I showed, but it's the MS version, which has some features that can sync with Microsoft Teams. So I can do one button to push and leverage features like the walkie-talkie feature. So I can still be heads up and hands-free for an audio conversation within Teams as I'm in the racks within the data center. So I hope you're enjoying the show. Let's keep going. So we're here with Andrew Stomworthy, Technical Account Manager at Ingram Micro, who focuses on Veeam solutions. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Mike.
So ransomware is just despicable, right? So, you know, a lot of times we rely on our backups to get us through in case of an infection, but also backups have failed us in the past, or many customers in the past, because their backups are one of the targets and the first things that they go after to get infected. So what does Veeam have to help their customers in these circumstances?
Well, that's a great question. Veeam has a couple of different ways that we approach protecting against ransomware. Starting with detection of ransomware in your environment with Veeam 1, which can alert you to suspicious activity of your virtual machines. Maybe they're working too hard, indicating that ransomware has infected them. To suspicious incremental backup sizes, indicating that your data is in the process of being encrypted. To basic mitigation like encryption, which Veeam supports AES 256 out of the box, and FIPS 140 if you require that extra layer of protection. And then making sure that your backups can't be deleted or modified by ransomware. We have different ways of doing immutability with object storage with S3 and S3 compatible and coming soon. Azure will also support that. And with on-premises immutability with version 11, we debuted the Linux hardened repository, which allows you to spin up a Linux server on-prem and make that storage immutable to protect it from being modified or deleted by ransomware.
All right, so very good. So Veeam is also known as pretty easy to use, I think. Now we spent some time today talking about new workloads that are, you know, either in the cloud or new things going on in our data center. So how does Veeam handle these, or is Veeam just a real easy way to back up my vSphere environment?
No, Veeam is definitely not just for your vSphere environment. Veeam is able to protect many different workloads. vSphere, Hyper-V, Nutanix, AHV virtual machines, cloud virtual machines, whether they're on AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. We're also able to protect physical workloads using our agents on Windows, Linux, and Mac operating systems, whether they're servers or workstations. And then odds and ends like IBM AIX systems and Solaris, SAP HANA and Oracle deployments, NAS file share deployments, and Office 365 environments as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew. We appreciate the report from the data center.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, our next guest here is Dia Benhajij, Software Product Manager at Blanco. So welcome, Dia.
Thank you, Andrew.
So this is a data center focused event. I'm familiar with Blanco from a data center standpoint, but for partners who aren't necessarily familiar with Blanco and what you offer, let's kind of start with a kind of a question for you. And what are the kind of questions that partners really should be asking their customers in a data center solution to introduce Blanco as part of that?
Okay, interesting. Yeah, definitely. So that's usually where everything begins. And a few questions I can think of is, for example, a general one about what does your chain of custody looks like when decommissioning assets, right? So we all know that the assets get decommissioned at some point, but what's that process? So is it, drives moving around in a cart that needs to go somewhere for, sanitization? Are they worried about that chain of custody at all? Another maybe a variant of that question is, do you have a pile of drives sitting somewhere in a room in your data center, right? And that typically, and that's more common than you'd think, and that's usually akin to a problem that they know they have, but they're putting it aside, setting it aside.
So from a partner standpoint, usually the partner is brought in because, hey, we're getting something new. And so kind of you're saying, well, what the partner should be looking at is if they're getting something new, do they also have to get rid of something else?
Exactly. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Because usually a lot of times that's maybe like an afterthought. You're focused on the new stuff, where to put it, all that. But then what do you do exactly with the old stuff, right? So what's the and we all know the old stuff has data on it because it was being used, right? So yeah, so that's how I would phrase it.
Well, I mean, that kind of seems like an easy lead in to me from the standpoint of, what are we missing? What should we be doing around data center security? I mean, we hear a lot now about, all of these ransomware attacks and those kind of things. You just talked about, that data that's going to be valuable to somebody, even if it is aged.
Definitely, absolutely. And what's interesting is that we all know how data is growing exponentially, right? And then data centers are putting a lot of work and focus on backups, right? Everyone is afraid to lose their data, with not having backups or downtime. But at the same time, we need to keep in mind that all those copies of the data now have to be tracked and secured, right? And then there will be a time where that data will become obsolete, whether, like you mentioned earlier, whether you're bringing in new equipment and you need to get rid of the old stuff, or even, if you're repurposing a machine to do another project. So my take on that is to really think about including data erasure or data security in general into the whole device life cycle. So be prepared from the start till the end. Not only think about it when a problem occurs.
So it sounds like a great opportunity for partners is to ask that question about, what are you doing with, are you pulling out old equipment for this? Are you going to repurpose old equipment? Because kind of what it sounds like is, even if you're going to repurpose in-house, depending on the kind of data that you're working with, you might want some kind of validation report that it was securely erased. Obviously, a lot of this, whether it's proprietary data or we're talking about compliance, that documentation that you're documented, is really critical.
Absolutely.
And it also sounds like it ties into, very much the whole supply chain from the standpoint of a product lifecycle. What are you doing with that old equipment? Do you see a lot of people looking at data erasure solutions, tying into like green initiatives because they want to pull out older, less efficient systems? They need to make sure that they're clean because they're going to be, repurposed or, harvested for materials or whatever.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Andrew, because so maybe like, let's say 5 or 10 years ago, this was not maybe on the radar of a lot of companies or infrastructures or data centers, and they had maybe a process where they will, for example, destroy drives or systems that are obsolete, or even keep them, like I said, in a room somewhere forever. So spend money on storage rather than leaking them out or taking them out. But then recently, like in maybe the last few years, we've seen a lot of engagement that were motivated essentially by ESG, right, by environmental reasons, and like you have these big data centers that are realizing that they're leaving a high carbon footprint just because of them not taking an active solution for erasing data so that they can reuse the equipment later, because as we know, when you destroy a drive, there is no way to reuse it, right? And that leaves a footprint behind.
Thanks. Well, I know some of the other things that Blanco supports, and so going to give you the opportunity to talk about that a little while as well. Obviously, with everything that's gone on, we had a big shift. I think a lot of people got pulled off of their data center day jobs to set up end user machines for people who are going to be working from home. So now that we did what we had to do to get through that, and now we're looking at, in many cases, hybrid work models. We're going to continue to have people from working from home. Some of those people who may have been working from home for you are saying, well, if you're going to make me come back to the office, I'm getting something else. What are we doing? What do we need to do with those assets that are out in the field?
Correct. Yeah, that's a very, very good point and pertinent point to in these days that we're living in. What I would say there is that there was a bit of panic where the IT didn't know what to do with those assets, and of course the traditional way is just ask for them to be shipped back, and then they will be processed or sanitized. But then two questions come from that. Is that one, how do you guarantee that no data is leaked prior to shipping them, or the delay until you ship them? And also, what happens if the device is lost midway, right? Which can happen. And this is where I would stress the ability to do remote erasure through Blanco. So what this means is that you can easily set it up in a way where you can have the Blanco erasure pre-installed or provisioned on these machines, right, prior to providing them to the user, or even at any point you can decide to add or update the machine to have this remote erasure capability. And what this gives you is that at any point, whether, like I said, the employee is leaving or they're changing machines or they need to upgrade to something better, with the old machine, through a click or even through a script or automated policy, that machine will flip back into the Blanco software, and then start whatsoever. And then finish its job and send back an erasure report across the network, even using the home Wi-Fi of that user that was already set up on the machine. And this leaves you with a clean, closed loop and a clean audit trail that the asset is sanitized, that can be safely shipped back.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we can draw up some interest in Blanco.
Definitely, likewise. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to you today, and I hope someone learned something from it.
All right. Well, so we are, imagine that, engineers running a little bit long. So we covered a lot of content. We've got some more interviews we really want to share with you that we're going to be doing after this. So if you can hang on, that'll be great. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick recap, and then we're going to go out I'm going to go out and do a couple more interviews. So kind of like we did with the first half, I want to do a quick recap on the second half here, and looking at it from a touchless data center point, because that's one of my real areas of interest. And I got to go back and think about the things that my themes for this, and a lot of that goes back to opportunity and differentiation, and some of the stuff that the Legrand interview brought out. Cover that really well from the idea that, almost echoing what I talked about with scale, with the idea of a lot of the things that we're used to in data center, we can now bring out to the edge. So, with the rack controller, with the switchable PDUs, I'm 100% I will never not recommend port switch PDUs. Okay, especially whether it's a staffing or the fact that something's physically not in the building, out on the edge somewhere, the ability to be able to remotely turn that outlet on and off is just so valuable. Because we've actually had situations where it's like, okay, I got to walk somebody through finding the right power cord to pull and plug back in. It's much easier if I can just flip that outlet on the PDU.
Yeah, so sort of taking it home here, my reflections just on the whole event, the themes or the threads that you see that are similar throughout. To me, it kind of starts with edge, this modern data center changing a little bit, right? And the growth of edge and the data center being in all sorts of different places and the things that causes. One of those, really in the second half, we saw cloud management would be one of those. So both, Cisco talked about it, HP mentioned it, IBM talked about it from a cloud management, which which is fine. It makes a lot of sense. But the next step to that was AI, right? And getting intelligence because you have that cloud management. And that was even brought up in the very beginning. That was the key innovation that Cheryl mentioned when she launched the actual event. So that's how I think of it. And at the end, I just take away, we want to be smarter, right? And that's the AI piece. And then the app-driven data center. Gould from Morpheus mentioned a couple times to me. He always says go faster. So that's I know what you're thinking, Andy. You're thinking we should go faster on the event. But Andy, thanks. I know you got a couple more interviews to go. All the stuff will be available on recording after. If you can't stay a few minutes extra to listen to our technology consultants. But special thanks to Andy here as he gets set up. For just being a great interviewer, being a trooper, working in the data center, or even sent him outside to do an interview. It actually started raining a little bit, so he did a great job. A great interviewer and a great listener when you're interviewing, which is the tougher task. All right, so everyone, thanks for joining our event. Any and all feedback is appreciated. We tried something a little different for us, doing interview style. So hopefully you liked it, and thanks. We had a great time doing it.